It was 11:43 p.m. when billionaire investor Nathan Caldwell walked out of his Madison Avenue office, exhausted, empty, and certain he'd long outgrown the feeling of surprise. The city was quiet snow, clinging to the curbs like dusted glass. He buttoned his coat, reached for his car door, and froze. Across Fifth Avenue, sitting on the cold steps of the New York Public Library, was a little girl, no more than 7, shaking beneath a torn hoodie. Her eyes locked on his wide, terrified ancient. When he knelt beside her, she whispered words that would change everything. "Sir, the Boogeyman hurts me every night. If you were Nathan, would you walk away, or would you stop to listen? Tell me in the comments what you'd have done, because what he discovered after that moment is something no one could have imagined." The girl's name was Lily. Her voice trembled like thin glass. Beneath her sleeve, Nathan caught a glimpse of bruises, uneven, fingerprint-shaped. A strip of duct tape still clung to her wrist. He felt something break inside him, something he'd spent decades sealing behind deals and meetings and guarded smiles. He asked where her parents were. She shook her head. "He says I can't tell. He says he always finds me." The wind tore through Fifth Avenue, but Nathan barely felt it. He draped his wool coat over her shoulders and saw her clutching a tiny origami crane, folded and refolded until it was soft around the edges. "I make one every night," she whispered, "so he can't find me. But he always does." For a man who could move markets with a phone call, Nathan had never felt so helpless. He pulled out his cell and called 911, voice steady-clipped professional. "There's a child here injured, possibly abused. Fifth Avenue at 42nd. But when the patrol car arrived, the officer barely looked at her. "Kids say things," he muttered. "Shelters are full this time of year." He handed Nathan a form, the kind of bureaucratic gesture that meant nothing, and drove off into the night. Lily stared after the taillights, her lips trembling. "He'll come again," she murmured. "He always comes." Nathan didn't have a plan, just instinct. "You're coming with me," he said quietly, "just for tonight." Her eyes darted up to his. "Is your house safe? It has guards, alarms, and me," he said. They crossed the nearly empty street, snow swirling between yellow taxi lights. When they reached his high-rise on Central Park West, the doorman straightened, confused by the sight of his famously private employer carrying a small, frightened child. Nathan signed her name in the guest book himself, just Lily, written in his own precise hand. Inside the marble lobby, the world felt too clean, too cold. The elevator doors slid open, and Lily's small fingers suddenly clamped onto his sleeve. She wasn't looking at him. She was staring through the glass doors of the lobby at a man standing across the street. Mid-40s, expensive overcoat, still as stone. The man's mouth curved slightly, not a smile, not exactly. "That's him," Lily whispered. "That's the Boogeyman." Nathan turned, but the man had already melted into the dark. He hit the elevator button and felt the doors close like a verdict. When they reached his penthouse, his night shift concierge Maya was waiting with a first aid kit. "What happened?" she asked, scanning the girl's bruises. "Long story," Nathan said. "She needs warmth, food, and silence." Maya knelt beside Lily, her voice calm, clinical but kind. "Hey there, sweetheart. Mind if I take a look at that foot?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. The sole was cut and dirty, probably from running barefoot. Maya cleaned it gently. "You're safe here," she said. "This bandage only works on brave kids." Lily managed the smallest smile. "Is it real magic, real enough to make the pain stop?" Maya said. Nathan poured warm milk, found crackers, and realized he hadn't used his own kitchen in months. Lily sat at the counter watching him like she wasn't sure it was real. She ate slowly, every bite careful, polite. When she finished, she wiped her hands on her sleeve and whispered, Do people like him ever go to jail? Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. If they don't, we make sure they do. He settled her on the couch under a soft gray blanket, the one his mother had knitted before she died, something he hadn't touched in 10 years. The city glowed through the glass walls behind them. Lily clutched her origami crane in both hands. "Will he find me here?" she asked. "Not here," Nathan said. "Not while I'm breathing." Her eyes began to close, exhaustion overtaking fear. "Will you still be here when I wake up? I will." When her breathing evened out, Nathan walked to the security console and replayed the lobby footage. Frame by frame, he froze the image at 10:02 p.m., the man outside. Expensive suit hands and pockets, a ring, flashing on his right hand a gold lion's head. Nathan's stomach twisted. He zoomed closer until the pixels blurred. His phone buzzed. Maya's voice came through softly. "Nathan, we just found something on the service entrance wall. A chalk mark, a circle with a line through it." "Tagging?" he asked. "Looks like it. Fresh." He looked back at the couch where Lily slept with the paper bird in her fist. Her lips moved in a dream. "Don't let him in," she murmured. Nathan turned toward the window. Snow kept falling soft and unbothered over a city that didn't stop for anyone's pain. But inside that apartment, something fundamental shifted. A man who'd built his life around control, now standing watch over a child who'd been robbed of hers. He whispered to himself, to the city, to the ghost of the man downstairs. "You picked the wrong kid to hurt." Then he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Detective Asha Patel, Special Victims Division. "Asha. It's Caldwell," he said. "I think I just found one of yours, and I think she's being hunted." The line was quiet for a moment. "Nathan," she said finally, her tone grave. "Whatever you do, don't let her out of your sight." Outside, a snowplow roared past. Inside, the paper crane on Lily's chest rose and fell with her breathing wings trembling under the faint light. Nathan stared at it, realizing he had no idea what kind of monster he was up against, but for the first time in decades, he knew exactly what he had to do. The first night inside Nathan Caldwell's apartment felt heavier than any boardroom he had ever walked into. Outside, the city pulsed quietly below the glass, 1,000 glittering windows pretending that everything was fine. Inside, the sound of the wind pressed against the penthouse like something alive. It was almost 3 in the morning when the building's motion sensors registered a movement on the service floor, soft, fleeting, deliberate. Nathan didn't sleep anyway. He had been standing near the security console for an hour, watching Lily breathe on the couch. He had locked every door, activated every alarm, double-checked the biometric access codes. Still, his body refused to rest. For the first time in years, the man who controlled everything was aware of how fragile safety really was. Maya walked in quietly, her slippers silent against the marble. "You should rest," she said. "I can't," Nathan replied, his voice low. "The system just pinged the service corridor. Could be nothing. But we're not assuming nothing anymore." Maya glanced at the sleeping child. "You think he followed her here?" Nathan shook his head slowly. "He didn't just follow her. He marked this place. You saw the chalk outside." Maya crossed to the console and zoomed in on the feed. The night vision showed nothing but wind rattling a trash bin. "Could be air currents," she said. "Air doesn't draw circles," Nathan murmured. He typed a command that sent the building's internal logs to his private cloud and another to his contact, Ari, a cybersecurity specialist who owed him favors from a decade back. Ari texted back instantly, "On it. Running diagnostics. Expect remote access in 5. Nathan's eyes moved to Lily again. She was small, too small for the massive gray couch. Her hand still clutched the paper crane. She hadn't made a sound since falling asleep. Every so often she would twitch like someone bracing for an invisible strike. When Ari called, Nathan answered on speaker. "Talk. Your firewall's fine," Ari said. "But I found a micro-signal near your elevator, some kind of tracker. Could be a key fob, could be planted tech. Want me to sweep the building? Do it," Nathan said. "No one gets in or out without your eyes on them." "Copy that. You want me to notify NYPD Cyber?" "Not yet," Nathan replied. "We do this clean." Maya exhaled quietly. "What are you thinking?" "That he's not just a man." Nathan said, "Whoever this Boogeyman is, he's practiced. Knows fear. Knows when to show himself and when not to." Maya didn't answer. She returned to the couch and adjusted the blanket over Lily's shoulder. For a long time they both watched her sleep in silence. At 3:08 a.m., the console beeped again, this time the motion sensor on the terrace. Nathan's pulse jumped. He muted the alarm, grabbed the small handgun from his safe, and crossed the room with silent, measured steps. He switched the lights off as he moved. Moonlight reflected against the glass, revealing the faint outline of a handprint on the terrace door. "Fresh," Maya whispered. "That wasn't there before." Nathan nodded. He opened the drawer near the kitchen and pulled out a small device, thermal scope, military grade. The screen glowed blue and cold. Outside, beyond the glass, a faint orange shape flickered once, then vanished. "Someone's testing us," Nathan said. Maya whispered, "Police know. They don't test, they announce." He called Ari again. "Feed me the rooftop camera." Ari's voice came through the static. "Got movement East Ledge 23 seconds ago. Tall, male, dark coat, no visible face. Camera 4 caught partial reflection. Nathan, he's not random." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Keep the footage secure, encrypt it." By the time the building's guards reached the terrace, the ledge was empty, except for a faint white streak, the residue of chalk dust near the drain. The same symbol as before. Maya looked shaken. "He's marking her again, isn't he?" Nathan nodded. "He wants her afraid. He wants me rattled. He doesn't know who he's dealing with." They spent the next hour reinforcing the apartment's perimeter. Nathan had Maya install a second code lock on the front door. He reprogrammed the elevator override so it would only respond to his thumbprint and voice. By dawn, his home had become a fortress. When the first light crept through the windows, Lily stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, wary and half-dreaming. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw Maya sitting nearby and Nathan standing at the console. "You didn't leave," she said softly. "No," Nathan answered. "Told you I wouldn't." Lily sat up and looked around. "You have a lot of windows," she said. "Boogeymen like windows." "Not these," he said. "These are bulletproof." She gave him a tiny nod. "He used to stand outside mine," she said. "Sometimes I'd see his ring shine in the dark. I could smell smoke through the glass." Nathan crouched down so they were eye level. "He's not going to hurt you again. Not while I'm here." Her expression didn't change, but her shoulders eased just slightly. "You mean it. I've never meant anything more." Maya handed Lily a cup of cocoa. "Drink this. Magic again." Lily took a sip, watching the steam curl upward. "Do you think he's scared of you?" she asked Nathan. He hesitated. "I think he should be." By afternoon, Ari arrived in person. He was tall, scruffy, wearing a hoodie under a blazer, the kind of man who didn't fit in glass towers but made them run. He brought scanning gear and a portable monitor. Within an hour, he had mapped the apartment's signal traffic and found 2 irregular frequencies. One was in the elevator shaft, the other embedded in a small vent near the terrace. "Hidden mic," Ari said. "Cheap, foreign-made, but effective. Someone's been listening." Nathan stared at the tiny device. "He's been inside this building." "Or someone who works for him," Ari said. "You want names, I'll get you names." Do it quietly, Nathan said. I don't want him running before I know who he is. The three of them spent the rest of the day turning paranoia into protocol. Ari installed encrypted cameras that fed only to Nathan's private server. Maya drafted a rotation schedule for building security. Lily drew a new paper crane for every door, hanging them like charms. They make bad things forget where you sleep, she said. When night returned, the city glowed again, indifferent. The snow had turned to freezing rain wind moaning against the windows. Nathan stood at the glass, staring at the skyline. He had spent his life mastering numbers, strategies, leverage, but nothing in his career had prepared him for the sound of a child whispering through nightmares. At 3:02 a.m., the alarms triggered once more, just a soft chime this time like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Nathan didn't hesitate. He was already moving down the hallway, gun-drawn Ari behind him, Maya watching Lily from the living room. They checked the perimeter, no intruder, no breach. But near the main door, taped low to the frame, was another symbol, a crude chalk mark still wet from the rain. It wasn't a circle this time. It was the shape of a hand pressed flat and deliberate. Maya's voice trembled. He was here. Nathan looked at the mark, then at Lily, sleeping under the throw blanket, unaware of the darkness that kept circling her. His face hardened. Then we stop waiting, he said. We find him first. And somewhere far below, in the blur of headlights and winter wind, a figure in a black coat watched the tower with a cigarette burning between his fingers, the lion's ring glinting in the light before he turned away. By the third morning, Nathan's apartment no longer felt like a home. It was a command center. Monitors lined the walls. Feeds ran from hidden cameras, and Ari's equipment hummed softly in every corner. Outside, the Manhattan skyline shimmered behind the glass like a promise Nathan no longer believed in. Inside, a little girl folded paper cranes and lined them along the window ledge, one for each night she survived without fear. She had made 7. Lily sat at the long dining table, the city's reflection glinting in her cocoa mug. She wasn't drawing monsters this time. She was sketching a man's hand, a ring shaped like a lion's head, with a deep scratch running across the band. Nathan stood behind her, silent, watching her pencil move. "That's him," she said quietly. "That's the hand that hurts." Nathan felt the weight of those words press into his chest. "We'll find him," he said. Ari turned from his laptop where lines of data scrolled across the screen. "We're close," he said. "That tracker I pulled from your elevator logs, it's registered to a private security company, Paragon Risk Management. Guess who their biggest client is?" "Go on," Nathan said. Ari's grin was humorless. "Richard Vance, real estate magnate, your old rival. The one who tried to buy your company 5 years ago." Nathan froze. He remembered the man, charming, connected, and ruthless. "You're telling me Vance is behind this. I'm telling you the signals trace back to his network," Ari replied. "And that chalk symbol you found, it matches a gang marker from a private club in Midtown, one Vance owns." Nathan's pulse quickened, not from fear but clarity. "He's been hiding behind his own walls." Lily looked up, confused. "Who is he?" "Someone who hurts people because he thinks he can," Nathan said. Later that afternoon, he brought Lily to his office at Rockefeller Plaza. It was made of glass and steel, towering over the city like it belonged to someone untouchable. She held his hand tightly as they stepped into the lobby. Employees tried not to stare, but news traveled fast. Nathan Caldwell, the man who avoided human contact, now arrived with a child at his side. He led her to his private suite overlooking the skating rink. For a moment, she pressed her face against the window, mesmerized by the people below, laughing and spinning on the ice. Then she turned back to him. "Do they know?" she asked. "Know what?" that there are monsters walking around pretending to be people. Nathan didn't answer. He was thinking of the man who had followed her, and of all the ways money had shielded men like that. Ilona Park, his legal counsel, arrived a few minutes later. She was sharp-composed with the kind of calm that made judges hesitate before speaking. "You called about a child protection case," she asked. Nathan handed her the sketch of the lion's ring. "We need to identify this man and file a formal complaint. Quietly. I want no leaks, no headlines, not until we have proof." Elena studied the drawing. "You're not thinking small, are you?" "I don't do small," Nathan said. Lily sat in the corner, folding another crane, humming under her breath. Elena glanced at her, then at Nathan. "You're serious about protecting her. She's not just another case," he said. "She's the reason I'm still breathing." A soft ping came from Aries' laptop. He looked up. "Got him. Vance's personal vehicle was parked outside your building the night Lily showed up. Traffic cams confirm it. Same time, same car." Nathan leaned forward. "Then we have him." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You don't just want him arrested. You want him exposed. I want him to feel what she felt." Nathan set his tone dark. Fear, isolation, powerlessness. Elena exhaled. "Then we'll do this the right way, legally, safely." They set the plan in motion that night. Elena contacted a retired judge, Mr. Romano, one of Nathan's old neighbors, a man who owed him a favor. Romano agreed to help stage a controlled meeting with Vance under the pretense of a charity negotiation. They would record the conversation extract and admission and hand it directly to Detective Asha Patel, who had already reopened Lily's file under a confidential directive. Before the meeting, Nathan found Lily sitting near the window, her cranes lined up in a perfect row. She held the newest one out to him. "For luck," she said. He smiled faintly. "I'll take all I can get." When Vance arrived the next afternoon, he was every inch the man Nathan remembered: tailored suit, easy grin, the kind of handshake that hid its pressure behind charm. He looked around the office. "You've done well for yourself, Caldwell," he said. "Didn't think you'd ever invite me here." "Business changes," Nathan said evenly. "So do priorities." Vance's gaze slid to the side toward the drawing of the lion's ring pinned discreetly on the corkboard. For the briefest moment, something flickered in his eyes: recognition, annoyance, maybe even fear. Then it was gone. "I hear you've taken in a little stray," Vance said smoothly. "People talk." "Generous of you." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You should be careful what you hear." Aries' voice came quietly through the earpiece recordings live. Vance smirked. "I'm just saying these kids sometimes they make up stories. You give them attention and they twist it. You'd be surprised what they'll say to stay warm." Nathan's voice dropped. "I don't believe she made up the bruises." "Or the lion on your ring?" Vance's smile faltered for half a second before he recovered. "Careful, Nathan. Accusations have consequences." "So does truth," Nathan said. The conversation stretched thin, each word calculated. When Vance finally stood, his mask slipped just enough for Nathan to see what lived beneath it: a kind of satisfaction, the look of a man who had walked away from too many broken lives untouched. He straightened his cufflinks, revealing a flash of gold. The lion's head gleamed under the light. "Nice to see you again," Vance said, voice smooth as oil. "You always did have a soft spot for hopeless causes." When he left, Nathan didn't move for a long moment. Then Ari's voice broke through. "Got it. Audio's clean." He just confessed to enough for Patel to move. Nathan turned toward the window. Down below, people were skating, laughing, unaware of the darkness circling just a few stories above them. Lily's paper cranes caught the breeze from the vent and fluttered like tiny wings. For the first time, he believed they might actually mean something. The boardroom was quiet except for the faint hum of the air vents and the ticking of Nathan Caldwell's watch. It was the same room where he had once closed billion-dollar mergers, but today he wasn't selling companies. He was confronting a man who made monsters real. Richard Vance sat across from him, relaxed, confident, with a grin that had fooled judges, investors, and journalists alike. Between them lay a hidden recorder, its red light blinking faintly against the polished oak table. Elena Park stood near the window. Her arms crossed, her calm masking fury. Judge Romano was beside her, his face unreadable. "You both understand," he said quietly. "What you're about to do could end more than a career. It could end lives." Nathan didn't flinch. "That's the point." Vance leaned back, spreading his arms like a man presiding over a kingdom. "You make it sound like I'm the villain here," he said. "You've forgotten who built half the skyline outside those windows. People love their towers. They don't care how they're made." "I care," Nathan said. His voice was steady, cold. "And I have proof." Vance laughed low and unhurried. "Proof of what? A child's fairy tale, Nathan. You've always been sentimental. You see a lost kid, and suddenly you're a hero." Elena stepped forward, sliding a document onto the table. "That fairy tale has a pattern. 7 missing children, all in areas owned by your subsidiaries, all with matching injuries." Vance's smile twitched. "Coincidence? The city eats its weak, always has." Nathan leaned in, his tone tightening. "Not anymore. We're feeding it the truth this time." The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Outside, the city glowed behind tinted glass. Inside, every word was a blade. Ari's voice came through Nathan's earpiece, calm and clipped. "Audio's good. Patel's listening live. Keep him talking." Vance didn't know he was already undone. "You really think anyone will believe you? I own the headlines. I fund the campaigns. You'll look like a man who lost his mind over a street kid." Nathan smiled faintly, a kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "Maybe, but I've got something you never will, someone willing to tell the truth." The door opened. For a heartbeat, Vance's mask slipped. Lily stood there, flanked by Detective Asha Patel and Maya. She held one of her paper cranes in both hands, her chin lifted just enough to hide the trembling. Vance stood. "What is this?" "This," Patel said, "is a witness. You can't use her." Vance snapped. "She's unstable, traumatized. You people have no idea what you're doing." "Actually," Patel said, setting a recorder on the table, "we know exactly what we're doing." Lily's voice was small, but unshaking. "You said no one would believe me. You were wrong." The sound of those words hit harder than any legal argument. Vance froze, the faintest panic breaking through his polished exterior. "You don't understand, little girl," he began, but Nathan cut him off. "No, Richard, you don't understand. You left marks on her life, on her skin, but she's not yours anymore." Elena slid another folder across the table. Inside were photos, timestamps, security logs, and bank transactions connecting Vance's foundation to a series of front companies funding his youth mentorship projects. It was the kind of evidence that could sink an empire. Judge Romano spoke quietly, almost gently. "Richard Vance, I've known you 30 years. I can't decide which is worse, that you did this or that you thought you could hide it." Vance's expression hardened. "You think this ends me, I'll be out in a week. Men like me don't fall, Judge." We land softly. Nathan stood. Not this time. Before Vance could respond, Patel's radio crackled. "Units in position," came the voice from outside. "We have warrants for Vance and 2 of his executives, standing by." Patel nodded once, signaling the officers waiting in the hall. Within seconds, the door burst open. The sound of handcuffs closing over Vance's wrists was sharper than the ticking of Nathan's watch. Vance turned fury breaking through his mask at last. You think this makes you righteous? You don't know what I've done for this city. I built your future." Nathan's voice was steady, cold, absolute. "You built prisons and called them progress. The future you built dies today." The officers led Vance away. The room fell silent, except for the faint sound of paper rustling. Lily stepped forward, holding out the crane. She placed it on the table where Vance had been sitting. "That one's for the others," she said softly. Nathan looked at her, pride and sorrow mixing in his eyes. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "We did." Later, when the room was empty and the evidence secured, Nathan stood by the window watching the city lights flicker below. Elena joined him, her voice low. "You know this isn't over. The media, the lawsuits, they'll come for you." "Let them," Nathan said. "They can have my company. I don't need walls made of glass anymore." Patel approached her tone softer than he'd ever heard it. "We'll make sure she's safe, Nathan. There's a foster placement waiting, but she keeps asking if she can stay with you." Nathan turned, meeting her eyes. "Then let's make that happen." Patel studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You'd be good for her." As she left, Maya lingered by the door. "You realize what you just did, right?" "I didn't save her," Nathan said. "She saved me." Outside, the wind pressed against the glass, the same sound it had made every night since she came into his life. But this time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like the world exhaling, finally mercifully, because someone had stood up and refused to look away. The morning after the arrest, the city felt different. Not quieter, not brighter, just more human. For the first time in years, Nathan Caldwell walked into his office without a suit jacket or a meeting on the calendar. The skyline outside his windows glowed gold with winter sunlight, but his eyes weren't on it. They were on the small paper crane Lily had left on his desk, its wings slightly bent from her tiny hands. News of Richard Vance's downfall spread like wildfire. Every network carried the footage, Vance in handcuffs, his empire of charities and real estate, stripped bare executives, testifying victims stepping forward. What had begun as a whisper in the dark had become a reckoning. Helena Park handled the legal storm with her usual precision, deflecting questions, keeping Nathan's name out of headlines. But his phone never stopped ringing, reporters, investors, people pretending to care. He didn't answer a single call. Instead, he went to the hospital where Lily and Maya were waiting. Lily was sitting cross-legged on the floor of the pediatric lounge, drawing with a new set of markers. Her hair was cleaner now, her cheeks brighter. Maya was beside her, flipping through a binder filled with court forms. "Judge Romano signed the guardianship papers this morning," she said, smiling. "You're officially responsible for her now." Nathan felt the word sink in. Responsible. The word didn't sound like a burden, it sounded like a promise. He looked at Lily, who had started folding another crane. "That's number 20, she said proudly. "One for every bad dream I don't have any more." He knelt beside her. "Maybe soon you'll run out of bad dreams to count." She looked up at him, serious. "Then I'll fold cranes for other kids." That night, Nathan took her to the new apartment he had prepared near Brooklyn Bridge Park. It was nothing like his penthouse, smaller, warmer, filled with light. The first thing Lily noticed was the empty glass bowl on the entry table. "What's that for?" she asked. "For the cranes," he said. "For every kid who comes here scared and leaves braver." She tilted her head. "Then we'll need a lot of bowls." They both laughed. It was the first time Nathan realized how much her laughter sounded like wind through open windows, soft, unguarded, free. Over the next few weeks, the world moved on in its usual impatient way. The trial began. Vance's attorneys tried to frame his crimes as misunderstandings, but the evidence was relentless. Patel's task force uncovered a network of abusers masked behind non-profit fronts. More survivors came forward emboldened by Lily's story. Her bravery had opened a door that could no longer be closed. Nathan, meanwhile, stepped down as CEO of Caldwell Capital. The board fought him, begged him to reconsider, but he didn't need the empire anymore. He redirected the company's charitable foundation into something new. The Crane House, a project designed to protect and rehabilitate children who had nowhere else to go. Maya became the program's director. Elena handled its legal wing. Ari built its digital safety system, ensuring that no one could ever erase a child's cry for help again. The Crane House opened its doors on a bright spring morning. The first thing visitors saw was a mural on the wall, hundreds of paper cranes, painted by children soaring toward a skyline of light. Lily stood beside Nathan at the ribbon cutting, wearing a yellow dress and clutching Atlas, the golden retriever therapy dog who had become her shadow. When reporters asked her why she made so many cranes, she answered simply, "Because they remind me that bad nights don't last forever." That night, when the crowd was gone and the building was quiet, Nathan stood in the lobby watching her play with Atlas. He thought about how different his life looked now, less structured, less perfect, but infinitely more real. He could hear laughter echoing down the hallways, the sound of something he hadn't known he'd been missing. Later, they sat on a bench near the river. The city lights shimmered across the water and the air smelled like rain. Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do monsters ever really go away?" she asked. He took a long breath before answering. "No," he said softly. "But people like us make sure they can't come back." She smiled at that quietly, knowingly. "Then we're like heroes." "Better," he said. "We're the ones who stay." When she fell asleep against his arm, Nathan looked out at the bridge lit in amber and thought of all the nights he'd spent chasing power, thinking it would keep him safe. Now, safety meant something entirely different. It was a girl with paper cranes and a heart that refused to break. By the end of that year, the Crane House had expanded to 3 more cities. Donations poured in from people Nathan would never meet. Some nights he stayed late reading letters from parents, teachers, even strangers who had seen the story on the news. Many included folded cranes, inside their envelopes, small tokens from people who had been inspired to care. But his favorite one came from Lily. She had written it in her neat, uneven handwriting and left it on his desk. It said, "Thank you for believing me before anyone else did. You made the monsters go quiet." He kept that letter framed on his wall right above the first crane she had ever folded, the one she'd clutched the night they met on Fifth Avenue. The paper was faded now, its wings a little torn, but he never replaced it. Some things weren't meant to be perfect, they were meant to be remembered. As dawn broke over the city, Nathan stood by the window of his new home. Lily was still asleep down the hall, Atlas curled at her feet. The skyline glowed gold again, just like that first morning after she'd said those 6 words that had changed everything. "Sir, the Boogeyman hurts me every night." He whispered them once under his breath, not out of pain, but gratitude. Because those words had ended one life and started another. Because they had taught him what it meant to stay. And when he turned away from the window, a small paper crane fluttered on the sill, caught in the morning breeze. He picked it up, smiled, and placed it gently in the glass bowl by the door, the one waiting for the next brave child who would walk through it, ready to start again. In the end, Nathan Caldwell's story wasn't about wealth or redemption, it was about awakening. A man, once driven by ambition and isolation, discovered that his greatest investment was not in numbers, but in people. He found Lily, a frightened child trembling on Fifth Avenue, and in saving her, he unknowingly saved himself. Together, they broke the cycle of silence that had protected monsters for too long. Together, they proved that compassion is stronger than fear, and that even one act of courage can spark a movement powerful enough to change countless lives. The man who once measured success in stock prices learned to measure it instead by laughter echoing through hallways and the light in a child's eyes when she realized she was safe. Lily, once broken by the cruelty of others, became a symbol of resilience, a voice for every child who had ever been silenced. And the Crane House became more than a shelter. It became a legacy of empathy, proof that from the darkest stories can rise the most extraordinary hope. Their journey reminds us that the world doesn't change because of grand speeches or perfect plans. It changes because ordinary people choose not to look away. It changes when someone decides to stop the car to listen to act. Each of us has the power to become a Nathan Caldwell, to open our eyes to the quiet suffering around us and do something, however small, to make it better. If there's one lesson to carry forward, it's this: humanity is built not on wealth but on willingness, the willingness to care, to protect, to stand between innocence and harm. We all have the chance every day to be the light in someone's long night. If this story touched your heart, don't let it fade. Subscribe to the channel, share it, and help us continue creating powerful stories that remind the world what compassion truly looks like. Your support keeps these stories alive, and together we can make sure that no child, no person ever faces the dark alone again.